Welcome back to the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This is where we blur the lines between business, nonprofit, and impact. I'm your host, Wendy V, and I'm a social impact strategist here to help you build a successful and sustainable legacy of social change. In this week's episode, we're going to hear from a social entrepreneur who has been on a journey to change the world just like you. If you are interested in social entrepreneurship, this is the place for you. Let's jump right into this week's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast. I am here with a very exciting topic today. We are going to discuss travel, but with a slant, because we're going to put a spin on it. What if you are one of those people like me and maybe someone else on this podcast who didn't grow up with the luxury of being able to travel? And how do you incorporate that into your life? And how can that absolutely transform the rest of your perspective once you do have that experience? So I think that this is going to be an exciting conversation because all of those things happen to me. I know all those things happen to my guest, and I'm excited to break this to you. So Bianca Nelson is here with us today to talk about her nonprofit and how she is bringing exposure to young people through travel. So let's talk about it. Do you want to tell us who you are and how you make an impact?
Yes. Hey, everyone. Bianca here. I'm the founder of Learning to Live Movement. We provide travel opportunities for high school students of color. Since COVID, not only do we provide travel opportunities, but we also help students their board. So we sponsor their passports just in case they can't travel with us. We prepare them to travel anywhere in the future. If someone presents that opportunity, they're ready to rock and roll. But I started my nonprofit back in 2015 after traveling to Australia. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. So most of you, maybe if you've been to Baltimore, if you heard about Baltimore, Australia was a thing for me because while I was a kid living in Baltimore, I had overheard a conversation between my mom and one of her friends, and they had just returned from Australia. And somehow the conversation came up that they didn't have, it was either they had zero crime rate at the time or they had very low crime rate. And I'm like, wait a minute. Does that actually exist?
Coming from Baltimore, it probably didn't seem like it exists at all, right?
Okay, this is like a magical, and what's going on. Since then, that inspired me to want to go to Australia. And if I got the chance, went off to college and trying to figure my life out until I moved to California. I was like, adios, I'm out of here. I gotta go far, gotta figure some things out. And I finally got the chance to go to Australia, and that flipped my whole life around. Australia and living in California changed a lot for me. And that's how I created my nonprofit, because I wanted kids growing up the way that I grew up in cities similar, to see that there's a world out there. Things are different. Things can be different. Life can be different than what you see every day or what you're used to. You just have to go look for it. You have to go find it. Step outside of your comfort zone.
Oh man, there's so much truth in that. And that's funny because I grew up like that too. I grew up in Whittier, California, so in Los Angeles, and I had the same experience. Like there was such a bubble, and it was everything that you saw every day with inner city. It wasn't only crime, but poverty and just all of the different risk factors that come with living in a city. And you don't know anything else but that until you leave. And so even going to college in Orange County, the next county away, where it wasn't so much inner city and was suburby, a little cleaner, a little nicer, a little more put together. It looked a lot different. I was like, oh, this is weird. And then I wanted to go even further. So I ended up in New York City for grad school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was like, I want to leave the country. Once I got there, I was like, I want to leave the country. And so I ended up going 0 to 60 and went all the way to a village in Uganda with no power, no water for 6 months. I went straight up. But I couldn't have gone further possibly. So
Yep.
I know what you mean that like this exploring vibe once you get on it and then you get to that point of finally going international, like out of the US. Cause that kept like, it was like, I kept going further in the US. I'm like, how far can I go? And then when I finally got off the continental US, I was like, oh, the world is really big
It's
and I
great
am
for
like so small.
it's funny that you say that because like, our journeys were very similar. So as a kid, thank God my mom, she figured things out. But she had enough where like my mom and my aunties and her friends and stuff like that, every summer they would get together, they would like rent a van and rent like maybe 2 hotel rooms at the most. Sometimes it was 1. It was about 15 of us in 1 hotel room. Trust me, we did it. And we would go places like Virginia Beach and we're in Ocean City once every or as else. So it was the same, like, we got to travel within the US. But I was the kid saying, wait a minute, okay, if there's a beach and then if there's this type of life, there's something else out there too. I gotta keep going. Let me try to get further. And like I said, moving to California from Baltimore was a total 360 in itself. I believe California is its own country. So that was a total 360 in itself. Like even from my day-to-day activities, I tell people all the time, something I really miss about living on the West Coast is I would go hiking about 3 times a week. And that was just, I didn't really go to the gym. You, that was my exercise. Me and my friends, we would pick days, we would find, a different hike and we would go do it. We would go on sunrise hikes just randomly. Hey, these are our hiking days. Let's go hiking. I never did that as a kid. And when I would tell people about it back home, it's okay, you're crazy. Something's wrong with you, you're crazy because, oh, it's mountain lions and it's this and it's that.
Oh, they're like you purposefully went to the woods where people go to take bodies and dump them. Like, why would you do that?
That. So it was insane. And what made me happy was my first time I got my entire family out. It was my 21st birthday. So I got my entire family to come out to California. Well, not my entire family, but a big chunk. And we rented a house in Venice Beach. And I had activities set up each day. And one of the activities was we did a hike at Runyon Canyon. In Runyon. And it was amazing just seeing their reactions to everything. And then, you get to the top and you're like looking over the city and you can see the Hollywood sign. And you could just seeing their reactions, it was more motivational. And like, okay, I feel like my purpose is to continue to show people these type of experiences and show people that you can have these experiences and they're not just for one ethnicity, they're for all of us. All of us can go out and experience these things and share. So yeah. The US did me good, but then I had to go further, like, right, what's one over here?
And now you've probably been amazing places and seen so many things, and you're enlightening others to have those same experiences. So it's such a great story. Like when I read your website, I was just so impressed by the work that you're doing in enriching kids' lives because they can have that experience earlier than we did.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part.
And the important part, like, the important part is we as adults, and I'm pretty sure almost everyone can agree, we get comfortable. We get set in our ways. It's like, no, this is the way I want to do life. Oh, that this is the way I want to do life because I've experienced enough life that I don't want. And we get really comfortable. So sometimes it's hard for us to crack our shells and step outside of our comfort zone because of what in the past and the knowledge we had and stuff like but with the kids, it's like, okay, you still have enough time before you're stuck in your ways. Let me show you that there's multiple ways of living life. You don't have to settle for what your friends say or what, your cousins say and what this person said. You take all that in, you listen, you take it in, but you also try to find your own path. So it's really important to me that's why we work with high school students right when they're in the middle of making major decisions and figuring out what it is I want to do in my life. What's my next step? You know, who do I want around me? They're really trying to figure out the answers to life. And I feel like travel helps that. It helps. My saying is travel is the school of life, and it's one of the best teachers. So it'll teach you almost everything you want to. I have learned some things. Let me tell you, right places, you'll learn a lot. So
Yeah,
it's
you
really
put your
important.
ear to the ground for the lesson.
Yes, yes, and be open, and that's another thing too. Just teaching them to be open, because especially in Baltimore, you have a lot of people that start to close in and they become closed minded, or they're just like, no, staying right here in this little circle. But I feel like the way to success is just having an open mind, um, having different levels of understanding, knowing how to navigate multiple situations, because you're going to come across so many different things in life, and you got to know how to navigate them and use different angles and stuff. So I feel like travel teaches that, and our kids need to know that at a young age.
Because there's so many roads that you could take as a young person in the inner city or in a city environment that are not going to lead you to good outcomes. But I
Exactly.
think that you have that space and travel to reflect and to see, not only with reflection, but with new lenses, the opportunities, and that you don't want those negative outcomes, and to be able to run in a direction that's really going to be positive. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why travel could really help in those pivotal moments if you're even teetering about like what the decisions are in your life to go in a way that's going to be productive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so can you tell us a little bit more about, the way it's structured? Like how do you logistically get a bunch of teenagers to another country and back safely? Like how does your work? Like I'm really curious about how you get to your outcomes. I know I'm like this girl's got some cool outcomes, but how does she do it?
Well, I mean, it's prayer, but the right connection. I can say everything. You know the old saying, "It's all about who you know." That's very, very true. But a lot of people don't understand. It's about taking care of who you know and taking care of yourself as well, making sure you show up in your truth. And when you're building these relationships, look at it as I'm building this relationship for the long run. And I'm not just building this relationship to benefit me, but I'm building this relationship to benefit both parties. So a lot of my relationships are solid, and they believe in me. They trust what I do. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to try my best to make sure that it gets done. So I partner with different organizations throughout the city, different teachers and principals and stuff like that. They help, since they're working with the students every day, they help get the student. And I put together all the travel stuff. Now it works a few different ways. So let's say we can have trip plan. And let's say we say, hey, we want to on a trip to South Africa, and we want you to bring about 10 kids. Then they'll get together and they'll pick out those students that they want. Or I have organizations that'll come to me and, we have, if they're doing really well in our program, we want to reward them with a trip, and we want it to look like this. We would build that out. Um, we have our retreats. Majority of our retreats, we have workshops set up, and starting from the way that we start our morning. So that's meditation and yoga. And then it'll lead out depending on the subject. So if we're working with a group that focuses on um, STEM, that'll be majority of the project. If we're on a volunteer project, like we just did in Jamaica, we'll be doing volunteer project. The one in Jamaica, we volunteered at a local elementary school, which was amazing because the kids got to see how good they have it back home. So, but we have a variety of different retreats with different subjects, and students can either join those retreats or we will build retreat for different organizations. And since day one, like I said, it's all about relationships because the students and the parents don't pay anything. They just have to commit their time, commit to understanding how things work, commit to respect. That's one of the biggest things. Um, and we provide everything. So a lot of keeping us alive is very fundraising through private donors, sponsorships, but a lot of the organizations that we work with, they might have the funds to then pay for most of the trips. So again, it's all about relationship because they trust me. They know what I'm giving. Um, they know I'm going to return their kids back in one shape, and even a better, better human being. Um, so it's like I said, it's a lot of relationship building, maintaining your relationship and maintaining the relationships with the students because once these students come back, now they're telling their friends. Now it's like, hey, you gotta join this program. You gotta travel. I'm telling you, this is something different. So that helps. That helps keep the program going because then if the students didn't like what we do, we would have no, there would be no
There'd
program.
be no point in taking anybody anywhere.
No. So although I do get on their nerves because, a lot of our students, they aren't used to waking up doing meditation and yoga. So it's like, we got to put the goals down. We got to practice breathing. This is kind of boring. Um, we have different workshops where we're like building them up. We're doing affirmation, goal setting, stuff like that. So sometimes they're like, oh, they really got to do this. We'd rather be out, exploring. Um, but they understand at the end of the trip, all of it comes together. And every single piece of it comes together. From the way you start your morning to the way you end your day. It all comes together. So they end up loving us and they stick with us forever when they're outside of so when they graduate high school, they now become mentors. So they can still travel with us, but they're traveling with us as mentors. And about 50% of the trip, they would have to fund themselves. So that gives you a little insight on like how it works
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
I remember going on a women's running retreat to Costa Rica where we woke up and did yoga and meditation, all those sorts. And I love those parts. Those parts were great. The
Yeah.
running uphill in Costa Rica, I underestimated. So I did not like that part. It did not work out in my favor. I did not ended up getting to the top of the hill. The big hike that we were supposed to do in the trip. Yeah, I did. So I can empathize with where they were when it's like, can I just be doing the fun parts of the trip and not the parts
Yeah.
that I didn't realize were not. I loved the volunteering. Like we repainted a school. It was great. I had a great time. I will do that all day. I will set goals with you all day if you have that as part of your retreat, but don't make me run uphill in another country anymore because I'm like not going to be successful in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and we try to make sure that like before our trip, so we'll let each student know, hey, they get an itinerary. This is what we're doing. Make sure that you're agreeing to at least being open minded. If you've never done it before, at least have an open mind. Um, so we're really not like really forcing you too much to do something you don't want to do. But we've had situations like first time zip lining, and it's like they got an open mind until they get there, and they're like looking. And one of my students, he's like, "I'm not doing this," and we're like, "Okay, well, you're going to be left behind, and everyone else is going to come back with all these fun stories. Do you want to be left behind?" And he did it, and I'm telling you, by the time like we went on the last zip, he's like, "Okay, can we go again?" Like, no. But you see what happens when you step outside of your comfort zone. Some things you might like, some things just might be a lesson. You're like, okay, yeah, that's not for me. Running up hills in Costa Rica isn't for me, but at least I got to learn something. I got to push myself. I got to see that.
I got to see the hill in Costa Rica, which
Yes,
I'd never seen before in my life. Like that was
yes,
interesting.
yeah,
I got to appreciate.
yes, yes, yeah. Well, it it opens up so many. It opens up so many doors. It opens so many more questions as well, um, while we're traveling, and I love it. I love just seeing their brain, work, and they're like, "Okay, hold on. I think I could live a little differently," even down to learning, the different lifestyles. So, it was really a surprise when we went to believe that they didn't know that of course, they didn't know that you could make a living off of being a scuba and snorkeling instructor. Of course. Why would they know? That's not in the middle of Baltimore.
It's at a position that they readily see here.
Yeah. And they're like, they're like drilling this guy, like, okay, well, how much do you make a year? And where do you live? And what kind of car do you drive?
And how much scuba do you do? Exactly.
And he's just letting them know, like, hey, I've been doing this since I was a kid. I feed my family and I have a really good time. Like, I have a really good life. I wake up and I hang out in the ocean all day. I don't sit behind a desk. I'm not stressed out. I'm eating healthy. I'm getting a little bit of nature every day. I'm really enjoying my life. And I pay my bills, I travel, I do whatever I want. And they're like, oh, well, that's a thing. It is a thing. Well, there's a thing.
I can appreciate that. I mean, I've seen some jobs that I never would have known existed, and I was like, "Oh, that's new." But I
Yeah.
mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do, and you need to make a living, that's the culture of different places. That there's other types of industries, or
Yep.
and if we don't readily see it every day, we probably don't think about it here as an option, or even an option that I could move to that country and have that job, like because we're so not seasoned in this. And when I was thinking about it earlier, when you're talking about this time frame of when you have young people traveling with you in Europe or other countries, they have a gap year. America does not have this concept of space to figure it out. I don't know what else to call it, but just this idea that there is more to learn through experience and traveling the world and seeing other cultures and having connections and experiences like you're saying that help you
They get
grow.
it.
Yeah, they like that is so enriching as much so as college. So to trade that year off and start your career like a year later, I think is worth it, to be
Yep.
honest.
Well, even when you speak of college, like we have so many students here that they're just not motivated to go to school. They're not motivated. Um, one, which one of our biggest problems that you don't find in some other countries, is the cost. Like, bottom line, the cost. They have to think about, okay, I have to pay for this and it's super expensive. And then because I don't have the money, I have to take out tons of loans and I'm going to have for the entire amount. The rest, do I want that? And a lot of them, no, they're getting to a point. No, let me try to get Instagram famous or let me try to do this or, something else. But I also tell my students, okay, how about you look at going to college in another country? So that way it's, you get the experience a totally different world. You get to live a different life, while still getting your education. At least try it, at least try it. If it's not for you, I'm pretty sure by the time you didn't travel miles away from home, you're going to figure out what's for you. So just that piece right there with college, the ones who are kind of like stuck, I always encourage them, okay, if you're not going to go to school right away, take a year to just travel. See if you could like work an online job or something, but take a year to just travel and figure yourself out or try college, but try it in a different country. See how you like it.
That's a cool tip because I think college in a different country, I always wanted to actually was trying to apply to do a semester in Italy in Italian. Now my Italian never went off. It never popped off. So it just like, was it going to work out? It was never meant to be. But boy, do I love Italy now that I've actually been there. And I
Yeah.
always think like, God, that would have been so cool if I could have been there for a whole semester and just like, I probably would have just chosen to stay and never left Italy. I think God, I would have gotten stuck in Italy. I may have never actually made it anywhere else if it just went Italy.
I wish I wish I went away from school. I think for me, if I would have tried to go to school in a different country, I probably would have stayed and things would have been just a little bit different. But I love where I am. I love where I am. Travel has been my school.
Yeah, I remember meeting a gentleman when I was living in Africa the first time, like in 2006. So I would have been about 25, 26, and it was like, oh, some people there's some people work their whole lives just to travel, and some people they travel and then they figure out how to make work for them. And I
Yes.
was like, wait, that's the thing. It was like what you were saying with the scuba diver. Like, hold up, so people be living their lives focusing on travel and not work. That doesn't make any sense. And he's like, yeah, no, absolutely. So that's what
I'm
I'm doing.
people.
Yeah. You sound like people. I'm still kind of the opposite. I'm still like working to travel, but my goal is, yeah, I want to own a little like hostel people
I want to stay out.
situation and like live there and work and travel from there.
I want to say I'm a nice in-betweener. Another thing that I teach my students, and we're actually working more on building a program out for them in the hospitality industry, because I teach my students that a really good career path um, to get into when you're young is in the hospitality industry. The hospitality industry has taught me so, I've been able to make really good money. But it has allowed me to travel, because a lot of the problems you find, people work 9 to 5s and they don't have the time off or whatever the case may be outside of their, other life, maybe kids and family and stuff. But with the job, they don't have the time. They don't have the flexibility and stuff like that. So they can't travel as much as they want to. Whereas the hospitality industry, you can be as flexible as you want, especially depending on your, but for the most part, you can be as flexible as you want. So you can travel the world whenever you want. You can make good money. And this is something that we've provided jobs for kids to travel throughout the US, but something I teach them when I lived in California, I would travel up and down the coast, and I started to travel to other states. But I would travel up and down the coast doing the different jobs. I would bartend for different events, or I was an event planner and setting up different events throughout the West Coast. So I teach them, like, you could be so flexible where you say, hey, you want to go live in Belize or Australia or whatever. When I went to Australia, I actually met one of my friends there. She was there for probably about 3 months or so, and she was just working at a coffee shop. She was just working at a coffee shop. And she was like, yeah, when I finish here, I'm just going to pick another country and just find a job as a waitress or something like that. So that industry can allow you to just plant your feet wherever and get a job and live a good life and explore new cultures and stuff like that. So I always try to promote the hospitality industry. It's something that's always changing. Um, but I feel like it welcomes almost anyone as long as you're open to learning and bringing you to the table. Whoever you are, bring it to the table, figure out where you get in, where you fit. And
And
yeah.
kind of making whatever skills you have work for you. Because I met people who were living in the hostel and working for the hostel, but
Yep.
they were just using that sort of as a home base to
Yep.
travel that country. And then on their days off, they were like everywhere. And they were like nowhere near the hostel. But they were at that hostel, like sleeping and eating and whatever for about 4 days out of the week. you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's really interesting ways, I think, to do it if you're creative and if you really have that. Once you get the travel bug, you have the ability to like keep
Yeah.
it going. I think it's exciting. I'm curious for maybe not your business, but more for you, because this is always, we talk about you, we talk about your business, talk about what you're doing. Um, for you, what is your hairiest like oh-ish moment when you were traveling that's happened to you? Because I know I have more than a few that I've been like, oh, I'm in another country and this is not the same as where I'm from, and there is something going down right now. So I'm curious if you've had one of these moments while you've been traveling where you just went, aha, okay. Had to,
Um,
take, had to take a breath and navigate it somehow.
okay. So I would say, honestly, a few different times. So mm, I feel like I'm gonna sum it up. I feel like, especially when you're not like paying full attention like you should be, those moments can pop up at any given time. And you're like, okay, let me take a deep breath and let me figure this out. I've had times like this when I was in Spain. And it's funny because um I met a girl on a plane that was actually from Barcelona when I was landing in Barcelona. And she gave me like some tips and warnings and, just listen, this is how you should do things. Um, Even down to like, this is how you should wear your backpack. I didn't listen. And I didn't listen. Um, and yeah, the next day I had a few of my cards stolen. Um, and I was caught off guard, and that it was just a moment of, "Ooh, okay." And that same night, I was in a just alley trying to find a bus stop, and it was late at night, and it was just another moment of, okay, okay, take a deep breath. Let's figure out how to navigate this situation. I've been in situations where, the people that I was with and the people that are natives to the country got into like, arguments, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, let's figure out how to navigate this situation because things are done differently here. Um, but I want to say a few different times, and they pop up a lot of times when you're not just like getting ahead of things, you know.
Yeah, or maybe when you're like not you're getting a little too comfortable and you're like, "Ah, I'm fine," and then you don't realize you're a target and you're a foreigner sometimes. You
Yeah,
didn't pay
yeah,
attention.
yes.
Oh my gosh, I had my all my money stolen from me in Kenya and got stuck there, and I guess got stuck in Nairobi for a week. I finally got myself together, did a little bit of touring and adventuring, and went to get out of Kenya, fell asleep on a bus, and my entire backpack did not make it back from the send trip. So my wallet and my backpack did not make it back from the trip. I came back with a purse, with a phone, and a passport, and like some other key things. But none of the stuff I bought, none of the stuff I had with me when I went over there, none of it came back home. And then the funny part was I was leaving from Uganda back to the US in like a week. So like a whole
Wow.
part of my stuff, including like my retainer, all these things never made it back to the continental US. It's like they are being sold in some market in Africa over and over again. And it's fine. But it's hilarious. And and I was warned, which you said, I was warned not to fall asleep on said bus. I was warned not to put my backpack where I put it. And I thought that I would notice if somebody went above me and got it, and I slept so hard that I didn't notice. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
yeah, I can think of so many moments where it's just like, "Okay, take a deep breath. What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, the good thing I slept with my purse literally, like, that nobody
Oh my
could take it,
God.
like, wrench it from my dying hands if you try, right?" So my passport came back, and I was able to come back to the country, and I was it's just
I'm
I
thankful that you had your passport out of all things. I'm thankful that you had your passport because that's
if
a
anybody hears this, this is the warning. Pay attention and keep your passport on you at all times.
paying attention, and even small things like that. My cousin, he was military, and believe it or not, my cousin is almost 80 years old, but he's taught me a lot. And one of the big things that he taught me, especially after the Barcelona trip, is for especially for female. Now you know how they have those they're like what do you call them, like thigh wallets where you can kind of like strap your wallet and all your personal items around to your thigh so it's not visible. Um, I feel like things like that are important because it's so close to your body. So it's not easy to just grab and go. But like I said, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, and you can get ahead of a lot of things that some things you can't avoid. Some things are just going to happen. It might be just a lesson because, like you said, we were both warned and we didn't listen.
Nope.
So that was a lesson. Here you go. I'm here to tell you that it's real.
All of it is real. And it does, and it happens, like you said, when you least expect it, right? Because it's, and you mentioned something as a woman traveling, it's important to pay attention as well, because I've been caught off guard with that and had very, very fortunate for me incident when I was trying to catch a bus in the middle of a car park in Kampala. And I had a gentleman grab my wrist who was way bigger than me. I mean, over 6 feet, I'm 5 feet tall, and just say, come with me, you're in danger, and insist I go with him. But I knew that he was the danger.
Yeah, yeah.
So I cursed him out like I was on the streets of Baltimore. Girl, you never heard me say that. So many curse words. I was like, Mofo, you are not taking me today. And it ended up being a really good thing because people in Uganda are so afraid of cursing that they all turned around. Like the whole car park stopped and like looked at me and was like, what are you doing to the right white lady? Like, no, no, wait. And then he ran off and somebody came up to me and was like, oh, you were legitimately in danger right now. Where are you going? You need to come with me. And somebody was like, he's safe, go ahead. And the guy literally walked me onto a bus, set me in the very back, told the conductor not to let anybody talk to me and just sat me down, walked around outside the window and said, "Can I get you a water?" He walked by, brought me a water, and then they all were like, "Okay, she's safe." So he's like, "Don't get off the bus or don't do anything till you get to where you're going."
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
It reminds me of too, and that's something I try to tell anyone, that in certain countries, people, they're very, what's the word? They're very, you gotta be direct, right? They can be very hard and just direct, and it'll come off kind of like mean or rude, but you gotta know how to navigate through that. Cause like how you said, the guys grab your arm and they're like, listen, no, you come with me. Like, especially like in Jamaica, that's something that my students learn, that people will constantly try to say things to you or ask you things, or, they're very aggressive. That's the word I would look for. They will be aggressive and you have to know how to be direct. No is no. And I'm going to continue to walk this way. I'm going to continue to do this, but I already said no, and I'm not going to say it again. You know, um, you don't have to be mean or nasty about it, but you have to be direct. That's one thing I've
And
learned.
until you know you're in trouble, and then you're like, "Oh, now I'm about to be real not nice." You don't even know how not nice this little girl can get.
Right,
And it
right.
and it's hard because you wanna be respectful of people's
Yeah,
customs, you don't wanna be cursing people out in public if that's not customary in that country, or it isn't even here. So, like, you wanna be what you would be a good citizen in that country, right? But if someone's not treating you the way that you need to be
yeah,
treated, then it becomes a little more difficult to navigate that situation, like you were saying, with some sort of grace or, humility or whatever it is,
yeah,
because guest essentially in that part of the world. And I think I've had some fantastic moments. I mean, I've had people like the guy who brought me the water,
yeah.
who were just amazing humans who enlightened me to things I would never know about if I hadn't gone to those places. And then I've had some really scary moments as well. And I think that both have taught me, like you started out the show, you're saying the lessons of having something that is so different from my daily life.
Yeah.
Get myself into those situations, whether they were good or bad, is so different from my day to day that they were transformative for me as a person. To
Yeah.
be able to go past them and learn something from them is really important. So I'm curious for you and for your students and stuff, like, how do you even describe that or quantify that for people? Because that's like a crazy outcome, like, oh, your life is transformed as a result of coming with me on this trip.
Well, the good thing is, and this is why to me, 'cause people are always saying, "Hey, when are you gonna bring kids from our city, wherever that may be?" Which eventually I do want to start expanding into other cities, but again, I'll need the right relationship, um, the right commitments from people in that city who know these kids and know how to navigate through their cities and stuff like that. Because the good thing is, I know how to talk from experience that we both can understand. So a lot of times, like I tell them, something that I learned as a kid, and this sounds horrible, but when you grow up in certain places, you have to learn certain things to survive. And something I learned as a kid, my brothers always taught me, when you're walking, your head should always be on a swivel, especially if you're walking by yourself. Your head should always be on a swivel. You should always be just paying attention to what's happening around you. Because unfortunately, we grew up in places where, out of nowhere, and it doesn't even, now you see the world, this stuff can happen in some of the nicest neighborhoods. So no matter where you go, you should always be using that. Okay, let me, give it a look, like you're crossing the street all the time, paying attention, because you could, out of nowhere, there could be a shooting and you get shot if you're not paying attention. So what's actually happening, and seeing these things happen, and getting ahead of it. So having these conversations, like before we go certain places, but it's a little easier because of our background and what we know about our own city, how to navigate through our own city, and let people know that no matter where you go in the world, you have to be careful. You can be in the nicest neighborhood, you can be in the nicest places, the richest places. Things can happen. Anything can happen at any given time. you got to pay attention. So I actually enjoy these conversations um, because it just goes to everything in life, not only just safety, um, not only just physical safety, but just mental safety, spiritual safety. Like pay attention and just be aware. And that's why I always have a good time with a lot of time. Like when we're out, put your phone down. We're not just walking with your head in your phone. Put your phone down because I need you to know what's going on. If I ask you, like, hey, how do we get back to that village? I need you to know. If someone was to, grab you, I need you to be able to think of how you got to where you are, so pay attention. I have fun kind of, teasing them about putting their phone down. So that part.
I've been like thinking of how many times I've been walking the dog on my phone. I was trying to hear your voice and be like, Bianca's telling me to put my phone down. Pay attention or crossing the street with the dog. And
Now we do it all the time without even thinking about it. We're just like, "Oh,
autopilot.
this done. Let me get
We're
something done."
on autopilot. Just get
Yeah.
it done. Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to go here and do this. And I can't wait to answer this person on my phone until I get home, and we're on the go all the time. So I could see how,
And answer the
adult.
personal phone. That's something I learned in Australia, and I teach my kids this all the time. What's more important than being present? Because whatever that person, especially when you're in another country, whatever that person on the phone is telling you, there's nothing you could do. I had a situation when I was in Australia, and my mom, she was when I went to Australia, I didn't get like the cell phone service or anything, so I could only use my tablet when I was on Wi-Fi. And once we left the house, no Wi-Fi. So I was at my friend's house and I was on the phone with my mom and she was like trying to tell me a story about something that was going on at home. We got disconnected for a minute. Um, but we had to leave because we had scheduled to go out to the beach because my friend wanted to show me this really cool beach. And it was like a couple hours drive or something like that. So when we were driving, I'm like, okay, can we make a stop really quick? I want to get on some Wi-Fi, call my mom back, see what's going on. And it was just drama. It was just family drama. And he looks at me and he's like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, no, dude, like I have to call my mom back. And he's like, but why? You told me that it's just drama, right? Or whatever is going on. He said, let me ask you something. Do you have enough money to buy a flight right now, get on a flight and go back to the US? Do you have enough money to do it? And if you do have enough money, are you going to do it? And I'm like, absolutely not. He's like, so why? Why? Put your phone down. We're going to the beach. That's it. That's all that matters. All that matters is what's happening right now. What's happening back at home doesn't matter. So I teach my students that like that goes for all of us. A lot of times, let me get back to this person really quick. No, what's more important than you walking and getting across the street safe right now?
Then safety first. It's just like I'm like, yeah. I tell you, I'm gonna start hearing your voice in my head. To be like, my homegirl Bianca is like, be safe. And I love the idea of the beach too, because the experiences you have when you're traveling, sometimes they're once in a lifetime experiences. You only see that white sandy beach or that black sand beach one time. You ain't going all the way back there to Australia, driving all those hours and doing all that all over again to see it second time. Like, no, you went that one time, you gotta remember it. So I appreciate that a lot because I'm a beach girl and I'm the one who will drive to the tippy top end of Puerto Rico to go to the one beach somebody told me was really good. Like I will do all that all day. So I would say like we are kindred spirits for sure. And it's
Yeah. I work for which part of California? Are you still in
LA. No, I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been in this area for years and years. How I ended up here as a whole other podcast episode. We'll go into that next season. But yeah, no, I've been in Maryland for a number of years now, and I love it here. So I think it's just like I've been part of the community here. It's the whole vibe. But I
Yeah.
think the East Coast West Coast thing. I like the Mid Atlantic because this area is so diverse, kind of like LA, and I don't get that in all the other cities. I've visited a lot of other cities. I've lived in Houston. I lived in New Orleans, but there's like not a lot of Latinos there's not even in this area. I mean, you get like a whole variety of people in this little Mid Atlantic area. So the greater DC, Northern Virginia region, I really appreciate it. And the nature is right in here, like you were saying. We can go hike, we can go do different things around here, But when you're in a young person in the inner city of DC or the inner city of Baltimore, or even in the inner city of Chicago or wherever, getting just slightly outside of those city boundaries is really difficult. So I wanted you to tell us just before you end, like just the people who don't really understand kids you work with, or like they might be hearing the stories of transformation and think that's great, going to be great for any 17, 16-year-old, and blah, blah, blah. But when we're talking about kids who have faced some of the things that your young people have faced, it's a little more special than I think, because these opportunities wouldn't otherwise be available to them monetarily or even with their parents knowing how to navigate it and do it for them, right? So just like peel back the surface a little bit more about who exactly you serve and why this is such a great experience for them.
So it goes into like what you were just saying about how Montgomery County is so diverse and you got this and you got this, right? And that's only about 30 minutes away from Baltimore. But a lot of students in Baltimore, speaking of myself as well, when I grew up, um, we didn't know those places existed, you know? And it goes to exposure. So a lot of our students, where we come from, we just lack exposure. We lack exposure. There's a part of, I don't know if you ever heard of South Point in Baltimore. So South Point, I didn't really know, I didn't really get to really experience Fells Point and understand Fells Point until I moved back to Baltimore, which was about 5 years ago. Now I'm talking about at being an adult, and I've lived there my entire life. Fells Point is only about 15 minutes away from where I grew up. And like I said, so we're talking about kids who the exposure is like this, there's not much exposure going on. Um, Down to I didn't know I had an accent until I moved to California. I didn't know that my English was screwed until I moved to California. You know what I mean? Because we're in this bubble and it's like, okay, this is how we talk. And not only this is how we talk about a lot of our teachers, that's how they talk too. That's you know, that's how they talk to. That's what they're teaching us. So we don't even have the proper. We got.
And could you say Baltimore the way you all say it? Because I still can't say it.
Baltimore. We delete the T.
Where'd the D come from is what I always want to know.
We create our own everything. Okay. We create our own everything. We create our own sauces. And now the other thing too that goes with exposure, it's not just only about like, okay, let's take the kids out of their comfort zone and show them the big, big, beautiful world out there. But it's also, for me, it was about, okay, I'm going to go see the big, big, beautiful world and I'm going to learn some new ways of doing things. And then I'm going to bring it back to my city because Baltimore is a really beautiful place. We have a lot of great history. We have a lot of great people that come out of Baltimore. But again, exposure, a lot of our kids don't know that. They don't know how great they are. They don't know how great they can be. We're dealing with kids who, one of my best friends, his niece is, I think, was 7 years old and got shot by another 9-year-old. That's what we're dealing with, you know? Honestly, we're dealing with
So tragic.
it's and just think about what the kids around have to see. So they're seeing that and they're thinking that that's okay. We're dealing with kids that when they walk outside, their uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters are now a junkie, right out front of their house. And they have to walk past them to go to school. And now I won't say that all neighborhoods are like that because it's not. Once I moved out of, I don't know if you know like the city, but I lived in Emerson Village. Once I moved out of Emerson Village, I moved into like in between Windows and Pikesville area. So I got to go to school in Pikesville. But even that was exposure like, oh my God, wait a minute. I got to go to a very diverse school. That's when I started to learn more about like Jewish culture and this. And you learn so much that's right in your backyard just from that little bit of exposure. And then that's what started triggering me more like, okay, I got to go learn more. I got to go see more.
And then you want to go see where those people are from, right? I've never been. Like, what goes on over there? What do y'all eat? Like, how does this work?
I want to go to these places and see one of my really close friends. her family's from Africa, and now she actually lives in Africa. And I'm like, hold on, I'm coming to visit, but thank God I got that little bit of exposure, but I had to keep it going. But a lot of our students, they barely get that. And their parents, they didn't have the exposure, so it's like, how am I going to give it to my kids? The most exposure they're getting nowadays is from social media. And the they're barely making less than what 40 grand a year. They can't support their household and support them and their kids traveling. Most of them are figuring it out. Um, but we're dealing with a very, we have a nice bunch of half and half. So we have students that had a little bit of exposure. Maybe they have traveled with like their family trip, stuff like that. But this still opens them up a different way, um, because our trips are set up differently. And then we have students who never, first time being on an airplane is with us. First time holding that passport is with us. First time being outside of the city is with us. So just think about, that mindset that you're dealing with, that if they don't get that chance to travel, who they might be, what type of adult they might become.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because it can change your whole perspective on what's possible for you. Like you mentioned, the job prospects or the idea of how you can live your life or how you can make ends meet. Because a lot of the times, people who live in those kinds of environments, we're not going to be batting an eye at having to live a life paycheck to paycheck, making ends meet, serving tables, because that might be the same option we have back home, right?
Yep.
So if you have that option back home or you have that option in Thailand, I mean, what you gonna do, right? You could go have an amazing time in Thailand, still serving those tables. So it is kind of a neat way to open people's eyes to other perspectives. And I just really am grateful to you for having this vision, because like what a vision to form your whole life around. And I'm curious, did you always know that you wanted to like help others or have something together that was gonna like serve other people? Or did you just like stumble upon this one day and be like, I'm gonna just take some kids to some other country?
So it's a half and half. So the funny thing is, I actually, growing up, I wanted to be two things: an astronaut and a psychologist. I've always battled back and forth between the two, of course, because they're totally different.
I just think there's no way to reconcile that either. Like that's not, I don't know, really hard.
Totally different. So, but the purpose, and it goes into actually what I'm doing today, because the purpose of being a psychologist is, I wanted to help people get through whatever they're getting through. I wanted to really get into their mind, figure out what's going on, why it's going on, and how we can shift things a little. And then being an astronaut, I wanted to go see something different and then bring it back and teach people about it. So I'm pretty much doing the same thing. Um, and then I also grew up, my mom, she's had her business since I was probably about 7 years old, but she places mentally ill um, adult into group home. So we've always lived with a few of her clients. And I just got to really see my mom change people's lives, from doctors telling them that they can never live on their own and they can never do this, to my mom making sure that they could do it. Um, so I was always like, okay, I want to change people, and I want to change people's lives. And the main thing is through the mindset. That's my main thing. I wanted to change people's lives through their mindset. I never knew how. Like I said, I wanted to be a psychologist. I also wanted to, and I still do, want to publish some books. More so just not really not telling people what to do, not giving them advice and stuff like that, but just sharing my experiences and letting them, find some answers within those experiences. Um, so when this happened, when I went to Australia and I had that life-changing situation, and I was sitting on top of that mountain in Australia looking down, I'm like, oh my God, I had to figure out a way to expose kids to the things that I'm getting exposed to at this age. And so when I went home back to Long Beach, I was living in Long Beach at the time. And when I went home and just started like kind of writing it out and building it out, it was a no brainer. Um, and that's when I knew. And until this day, I have been, life will take you, try to pull you away, and this will get in the way. You'll find new paths and stuff like that. But I can never really leave what I'm doing, because I know that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, because this is the way, to me, this is the way you change the world. This is the way you heal people. This is the way you help people. You just expose them to something different. That's it. You just expose them to something different. And I learned that through my mom. She had clients that, I remember one of our clients, when she came to us, she was like 17 or something like that. And the doctor said she can never live on her own and this and that. And she always seen blood coming out the shower and all this other stuff. And she had a bad relationship with her mom and stuff like that. And my mom was like, okay, we're going to just do things differently here. You're going to be in a new environment. Your environment is going to change. So that's going to change you. I'm going to treat you like a human being that you are. You're not an animal. You're not a psychopath. I'm going to treat you like a human being. We're going to do things a little differently here. And that's all it is. You change up people's environments, and that just, that alone starts to change their mindset. So it's, like I said, the travel portion wasn't 100%. I know I want to travel the world, but the travel portion wasn't 100% there since I was a kid, but a lot of other things were there. And now it manifested into exactly where I need to be.
Yeah. So that's so awesome. And I think it's really great because you've been able to transform, so many other people's lives through this vision. And that's really cool. I think that just committing to the vision, like you said, saying this is your purpose, this is where you want to be, this is your calling, and you're working through the steps to make it happen. Showing up every day. That's great.
They're showing up. That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh, yeah. So your organization is called Learning to Live Movement, right?
Yeah.
Learning to
Yeah.
Live Movement Inc. And tell us where people can find you and how people. Oh no, actually, I had one question for you before we go through the where can we find you question.
Yeah.
You mentioned this briefly, but I wanted you to elaborate on it. You talk about wellness in the retreats with your young people, and you have them meditate and you do yoga. But what do you do to maintain your well-being to consistently show up and serve everyone you serve?
Oh my God, that's a good one. And that's why travel, travel is number one, because again, we get stuck in our daily routine. And that can drive us insane. I know for me, that can drive me insane. Sitting at a computer all the time can drive me insane. Having to write emails all the time drives me crazy. So travel really helps me. Like, once I set foot on the airplane, just feeling the airplane take off, it's like, okay, it's time to release, relax, think, think some things through, get some writing done, all of that good stuff. So travel, number one. But meditation is really, really important. Meditation and what I put into my body. So that's another thing that we bring into our retreat, where depending on where we are, we'll try to, connect with local chefs and stuff like that, to teach the students, no matter where you are in the world, you can find the right resources to make sure you're still feeding your body the right thing. And in most countries, you can get better ingredients.
And it's actually like organic, quote unquote, but just how they grow it.
Get better ingredients in a lot of these places that we travel. But those are my main three things: travel, meditation, and what I put into my body. Because what you put into your body controls everything. And it definitely controls your mindset. Whether we want to believe it or not, that's what I believe in. But that meditation is important. That's why when we wake up, I don't play with my students. We're going to take some time. We're going to put those phones down, get away from technology, and just really bring ourselves, center ourselves for a minute and understand that there's life inside of us that we have to take care of.
Yeah. And I could talk to you for hours. We're going to be great friends. I'm excited to have met you through this podcast. And especially because we're so close.
Yeah.
But it's great to have you. So yeah, so do a quick little snippet for us about where people can find you, how people can support this wonderful thing that you're doing. And there are, it's anything coming up that you are looking for support for, let us know.
Yes. So Learning to Live Movement, you can find us. Our website is learningtolivemovement.com. And we have some really things that we're adding to the site soon. So I'm excited about that. Instagram, social media, the Instagram is actually L2LIVE_. And then Facebook, Learning to Live Movement. But if you type in Learning to Live Movement, it'll come up the website, Facebook, all of that good stuff. Um, I would say go on the website, join our newsletter. That's how you keep up with almost everything that we're doing. We are actually getting back into our raffles where each month we'll be raffling off something new and exciting. And it helps us raise money. So helps us raise money and awareness. So if you go on the website, learningtolivemovement.com, join our newsletter, and that's a way that you can help just give back, stay up to date, volunteer. Like you mentioned in the beginning, we always need volunteers. Rather that's for like our fundraising events or to go on a trip, we might need chaperones, stuff like that. So volunteering is really important. We need
I'm I will be chaperoning a trip very soon. So don't worry.
But yeah, and it's great for people too, because some people, I come across a lot of people who have the means to travel, want to travel, but they might not have friends that's ready, you know, and you know how that goes.
And they don't want to go by themselves.
Yeah, they don't want to go by themselves. So why go by yourself? Go with us. Now you might have to chaperone some high schoolers, but at least you'll still have fun. You'll still get to travel.
But it gets back to the thing we were talking about earlier about giving back and mentoring, right? So you could travel and mentor. Like when I saw that, I was like, this is an opportunity made for me.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I understand too that as adults, again, we get into our routine. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to feed our families. We're trying to go out and have a good time, keep our social life going. But sometimes when we're not feeling fulfilled, like there's a piece of something missing. A lot of times it was because we haven't found out how to give back. So I always feel full because I created a business around giving back. So it's like, okay, cool. I checked that box off. But a lot of people haven't. So and they're not like always looking for, okay, how can I give back? Should I, go sign up for, maybe the only time they give back is around holidays. Let me go sign up for a food drive or something like that. But I'm here to tell you that if you volunteer with us, you can give back all year round because we travel all year round. So you'll fulfill. You'll be able to give back, travel, and it's a win-win.
And you'll probably get something fulfilling for yourself out of it, right? Like that you needed in that travel, not even just to help the young people get their experiences, but you'll probably get something out of it too. So
Exactly.
I'm excited about meeting you and getting involved. So this is
Hey,
yeah, it's gonna be a good, I say public commitment.
when I get back in Baltimore, we definitely have to go have coffee date or something.
Absolutely, we will for sure. And I'm so excited about what you're doing. So anyway, I can support. So yeah, so this has been a lovely episode. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your world with us and opening up the world to us. I appreciate you so much. And this has been all our episode with Bianca Nelson. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone that's listening. Travel.
Travel more, travel often, right? All right, come back for another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast next week. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Social Impact Level Up podcast. It's been awesome to interview today's guest, and I hope that you leave inspired to take action. If you're looking for any of the information we spoke about, it's probably down in the show notes. Make sure that you're checking them out and you're clicking on any of the links that seem exciting to you. If you are looking for a coach or a consultant to help you with your social impact or your sustainability, reach out to me via my website, hop on my email list, or jump into one of my programs. All of the links are below. So excited to have you as part of the collective. Make sure that you come back and join us for another episode next week.